Did you know there's more than 50 hormones in the human body? And when I say they decide everything, they decide everything. Would you believe me if I told you every single decision you've ever made can almost all be accredited directly to your hormonal balance? And have you ever wondered why some of the best athletes on the planet can eat fast food and never exercise? Meanwhile, some guys that are in the gym every day with a perfect diet and a perfect regimen never make it out of high school sports. It seems like the most important function of the human body is the one that's getting talked about the least. Well, we're ending that right here today. In this video, I'm covering the 10 most impactful hormones that I've changed that have had the biggest impact on my life. Like most of you, the things I care about improving are things like body composition. How much muscle can I gain? How much fat can I lose? As well as how can I minimize my stress to give myself the highest level of mental capacity available? What is my decision making like? We're going to be covering all of it, and by the end of this video, you'll be walking away an expert on the hormones that make the biggest impact on the human brain, body, and everything in between. Let's get started. Before we get started, it is important to note that I'm not a doctor and nothing I say in this video should be misconstrued with medical advice. And if you are going to follow through with any of the protocols we talk about today, make sure you're only doing so under the direct supervision of a doctor or specialist in this field. Now, let's get going. It's important to note that as we talk about these 7 to 10 hormones that are going to make such a big impact in the body, to know what a hormone is. Oftentimes it just gets automatically lumped in the conversation with things like steroids because people know it so well for things like testosterone, but there's way more to the body and there's way more to hormones than just making yourself jacked. Hormones are nothing more than a messaging system. It's just telling different cells in the body what mechanism to perform. For most of us, our first experience with hormones in puberty ends up in things like acne or moody behavior. Very seldomly do we only get the benefits without any of the negatives of hormones fluctuating. Every hormone in the body operates on a receptor, and when that receptor is activated, it burrows itself into our cellular nucleus. While it's in there, it binds directly to the sequences on our DNA that end up giving it the instruction or telling our DNA what mechanism to perform next. If you want to think of the human body like a multi-billion-dollar company, every cell in the body, all 30 trillion of them, are just employees in this billion-dollar company. Well, imagine you've got this billion-dollar company full of 30 trillion low-level employees with no leadership. Who do you think's going to run the place? Everyone's just going to be frantically doing a whole lot of nothing with no leadership and no guidance. This is where hormones come in. They are the C-suite executives that give all 30 trillion cells their instructions on what they should be doing and what their job is. For those of you unfamiliar, a C-suite in a billion-dollar company are things like the CEO, the chief executive officer, the boss, the guy who runs the whole company, the COO, the CTO. These are the people in the company, the 5 to 10 of them, that make all of the money and make all of the decisions. Without our hormones, our cells would just run around our body like chickens with their head cut off. And just like in the real world, that C-suite of executives are the people that make every decision in the body. When I say everything, I mean everything. The reason that some people are effectively able to lead, make decisions, and act in high-pressure situations, meanwhile other people end up crumbling under pressure. Hormones. The reason some men have a beard, bicep, or bunion, it's all hormones. Now, in the world of reality, where there are 2 genders and each of them is completely different, the reason they are completely different is entirely because of their hormonal makeup. In fact, when people live in this world of fantasy and they want to switch genders, they end up giving them hormones. By now, I think you get the point. Let's get into the most impactful hormones in the body and how I've been able to use them for my advantage, and more importantly, how you can do the same for yourself. Let's start with the one that is undeniably the most impactful hormone of the 21st century. It's not the one you think I'm going to say. I'm actually talking about estrogen. It is the single greatest reason for the lunacy that we experience in the modern world today, because estrogen is all around us. Estrogen binds to the ER alpha and ER beta receptors. This most impactfully covers the brain, sexual reproductive organs, cardiovascular system, bones, and fat tissue. When estrogen gets too high in men, especially in their formative years, we see a lot of negative adverse reactions. Things like gynecomastia, other words, man tits, puffy and sensitive nipples, things like puffy face, moon face. A lot of you guys have commented that I have this lately. I've also just gained 25 pounds in the last 2 months, but I do carry a lot of fat deposits in my face. You guys aren't totally wrong, but I don't think it's because of estrogen. I get my blood work done pretty regularly. One of the biggest things we'll see in formative years when estrogen is too high is generally high voices in men, as well as softer, more feminine features, the inability to grow facial hair, body hair. But hands down, the worst of it all is the irrationality that it causes in the brain. Estrogen makes men incredibly emotional, and we were never designed to be emotional figures. We were designed to be logical, purposeful, strong decision makers. This continues as well into adult years years as estrogen remains high, and we're seeing the ramifications of an estrogen-based society in front of us because everything like our water supply, all of our plastics, everything that we do emits what are called xenoestrogens, which emulates actual estrogen in the body. That's a whole nother video on itself, but we're seeing the active repercussions of that lifestyle play out right now between how many men today feel depressed, feel anxious, feel like they're in the wrong body, feel like they need to be sad or emotional. Men were never designed to do this. And what happens when you do this to a man? They start to go insane. But more importantly, they're never going to do anything about it because they can't make a decision or they can't get themselves to do it. Now, as we cover estrogen, I do want to preface, it's also a really bad thing to have no estrogen. A lot of people get so scared of that side that they end up completely rebounding the wrong way and end up crushing their estrogen when they start messing with their hormones. This is arguably worse because this is going to destroy things like our cognitive function, our ability to get and maintain an erection, as well as cause major problems in the heart. So I'm not sitting here telling you to avoid estrogen at all costs, but I am telling you to balance it. For most guys, they want to see their estrogen anywhere between 20 and 40. If you're on a good TRT dose, even somewhere up near 50 isn't the end of the world. Now, if you guys are getting above 50, in most cases, that is caused to get on some sort of arimidex, aromatase inhibitor, or my favorite has always been DIM, which is going to be a more mild effect. It keeps my estrogen in check, but it doesn't crush it. All of that depends on where hormone number 2 on our list falls, and that is testosterone, which has always been and always will be my favorite thing on the planet. I want to make this super clear right now. You should not be spending a minute looking at a peptide, a new diet, a new workout plan, a new anything until you know what your testosterone is. It is the single biggest determining factor as a man in what your body composition is going to be like, as well as what your day-to-day mental state is going to be. I cannot stress that enough. Now, I have seen thousands of blood works from thousands of men. What I can say definitively is as a culture, we have lower testosterone today than we ever have in human history. There is no debate on that. The data backs it up. There is no ifs, ands, or buts, and it is a huge, huge problem. Testosterone, of course, being the male hormone, is the hormone responsible for drive, for motivation, for decision-making, for muscle building, for everything that is about being a man and being successful. If you don't know what your testosterone level is, or at least something close to it, stop what you're doing right now. Find a way to go test your testosterone. It doesn't matter how you do it. This is going to be the single greatest life decision you make, is just going to see what your level is. Because if you do find that it's low and you do end up optimizing for testosterone therapy, you are going to find a world of possibility that you didn't know existed before. Now, the reason I'm so passionate about this was my story. I had chronically low testosterone, which made no sense to me. I was working out 5 or 6 days a week, eating a perfect diet. I could bench 315 pounds. I was not the candidate for low testosterone. So it's not like you feel like shit or you don't feel like you should be unless you're in the older demographic and you once had high testosterone that is now coming down. But for those of you who are in that 35 and under category, you shouldn't be feeling any sort of decline. So you're not going to feel like you need to go get your testosterone checked because you feel the same that you've always felt. But when I tell you the difference after 1 month of having the right testosterone levels, I'm not telling you to go be a bodybuilder and juice yourself up to get all super jacked. I'm saying just get to the optimal range that a man should be. It is a night and day difference. It is the most revolutionary thing that can happen in your life. It's going to change everything about the way that you interact with the opposite sex, the way that you make money, the physical performance you're going to have, and just the overall man that you're going to be. You are going to be happier when you look in the mirror. You are going to feel more fulfilled because, again, all of our emotional state is nothing more than hormones. For me, I find the best testosterone level for my body, key phrase there, for my body is somewhere around 1100 or 1200. Every single person's body is different. There are people who operate at their best level at 800 nanograms per deciliter. There are also people who operate their best at 1500. Now, I don't think there's really many people there, but you guys get the point. Everybody is different. For me, my optimal range where I feel in the best mental state without experiencing any negative side effects is always at 1200. Again, if you don't know what your number is, there is nothing else to do right now other than go get that checked. Hormone number 3, dopamine. Dopamine is synthesized from tyrosine and it binds to our D1 and D2 receptors. Big misconception about dopamine, it does not register satisfaction in the brain. It actually registers a raw craving or wanting to understand what's going to happen next. When this hormone gets activated, it drives us to want to do whatever that thing is to make us find out what's going to happen next. It's more of a cliffhanger in the body than it is a happy pill. This is why people get such crazy spikes from things like gambling, because every time you play that slot or play that blackjack, you don't know whether you're going to win or lose. And every now and again you win and it's totally random and you feel great. You want to chase that feeling again. So you lose and then you win and you just want to find out how many times you can do that. When you flood your brain with bad dopamine, things like gambling, drinking, frivolous sex, whatever it's going to be, although they feel great in the moment, it ends up making you flat and dull because your brain can only crave such high stimulus of dopamine that you can't get it from the basic parts of life. This oftentimes causes a depression in men and causes them to feel like life is meaningless unless they're living in their vices. Now, I'm not sitting here telling anyone how to live their life, but I do think every now and again it is important to go do things that are some of that base level dopamine. Just go get in the sunlight, right? Sit outside for a while, do some breath work, go talk to some friends, things that are just naturally positive for human beings, and try to seek out as much enjoyment from doing things like those as possible. And just in the act of trying to enjoy that and trying to feel connected in those areas, you'll be able to stimulate a more positive level of dopamine. If you feel like your dopamine system is already fried and you're having a hard time managing it, I do have a full video on everything I did to completely restore my dopamine system, because I am someone who has certainly gone down some not so good paths and I needed a good way to get back in the driver's seat. I'll link that video below in the description. Next hormone is cortisol. This is probably one of the most talked about hormones right now on all the weight loss pages and all the fitness influencers. Everybody's saying it's not your diet, it's not your bad habits, it's your cortisol. Honestly, I think a lot of people have kind of a backwards understanding about cortisol and have given it a bit of a bad rap because it's known as the stress hormone. Without a doubt, having too high of cortisol will cause weight gain, will cause stress, will cause things like anxiety, the inability to sleep, physical aging, all of the problems. But for most people, cortisol is honestly not their problem. If it is your problem and you do feel too stressed out, again, I have another full video you can watch on how to drop cortisol, but I'm making this section of the video mostly to tell people I don't think cortisol is your problem most of the time. And if it is your problem, I think you probably know it. It's probably not something that you have to figure out or guess on. Now, when it comes to cortisol, what we do know about the research is that we want to spike our cortisol first thing in the morning and get it at the highest possible point that it's going to be at for the entire day as soon as we wake up or within an hour of waking. What this does for our body is it lets it slowly taper down throughout the day, and then as it comes time to sleep, when we want our cortisol at its absolute lowest, we want to get the good honk shoe, we want to be able to be in that floating state, right? In that blissful state where we're not overactive in the mind, where we're not freaking out all day. And there are a lot of different ways to do that. Like I said, I'll link the video down below. A lot of people like to use things like ashwagandha, KSM 66. I'm honestly not a huge advocate of it. I don't really find positivity in the answer that I'm never going to feel super crazy good or super crazy bad ever again. I'm just going to kind of sit in the middle and be this robot all the time. I think you should have moments that make you feel anxious. I think you should have moments that make you feel stressed. It's okay to feel stressed out. It's okay to feel like the world is crashing down on you. What do you do in that moment? You curl up in a ball and let it beat you? Or do you take that stress and that anxiety and turn it into massive action and turn it into doing something positive and constructive and then beating the dragon and becoming the guy you want to be? I'm going to pair these next two hormones together because they very often stimulate each other, and that is ghrelin and growth hormone. Ghrelin is secreted by the stomach lining when it feels empty. It's the hormone in your body that tells you to be hungry, that it's time to eat. And if there's one thing I got in my body, it's some freaking ghrelin. If people had a better grasp on their ghrelin, they wouldn't honestly need things like GLPs all that much, or they wouldn't need things to help make them skinny. Because if you just don't eat until your face is stuffed, then you won't gain too much weight and you won't end up in this obesity society we have. But there's a lot of factors at play that actually increase ghrelin unnecessarily that a lot of us are a victim to. One of them that doesn't get talked about enough is how one night of bad sleep can spike ghrelin by up to 20%. So not only are you awake for longer, so you have to think about food for longer during the day, but it's also going to feel more hungry. You're going to feel like you want to eat more for more hours of the day. It's a bit of a double negative. Your brain is so whacked out from the bad sleep that it enters this false starvation mode. The funny part about ghrelin is it can also make you crave calorie-dense and high glycemic foods. But when used appropriately, ghrelin can also have great impacts on things like growth hormone. Growth hormone is a signal to the liver to produce IGF-1, insulin-like growth factor. If you're new to this page, IGF-1 is especially adept at developing new muscle tissue. It's going to activate our cells to repair our body and repair our muscles quicker, as well as stimulate new nerve growth. This is why people love finding ways to improve growth hormone production. But not only does it build muscle, it also helps burn fat. It's going to help us use our calories more effectively to go towards things like energy expenditure and muscle development instead of sitting on our fat tissue. And one of the really cool parts about growth hormone is it also has huge impacts on our cosmetic appearance, how tight our skin is, the quality of our skin. And signs of lower growth hormone are rapid aging skin, sagging skin, things that we would generally consider unattractive. The reason I pair ghrelin and growth hormone together is that oftentimes when we take either one of them, it stimulates the other. So by being hungry and wanting to eat so much, it stimulates our growth hormone, as well as by stimulating our growth hormone, we're going to want to eat more food. The next hormone on this list is probably the least talked about one that we're going to go over, and that is prolactin. Prolactin mainly enters the body from the pituitary gland post-ejaculation, and under chronic physiological distress, it acts as a direct antagonist to dopamine. Put those two things together, every man knows what it is immediately. Prolactin is responsible for post-nut clarity. Now, luckily for most guys, that prolactin burst is short-lived, and it kind of snaps you into this, what am I doing feel? Again, only in times of distress. If you're madly in love with your partner, you're not going to feel that. But if you did this under a stressful situation, maybe you're with somebody you shouldn't have been with, or you're by yourself, all of a sudden you're thinking, oh man, I suck. Well, the dangerous part about prolactin is if you let it get too high, you can start to feel like that all the time. When prolactin's elevated, it crushes our libido and drastically amplifies the negative effects of estrogen in the body. So maybe your estrogen is fine, but if your prolactin ends up being too high, it can amplify that same estrogen that wouldn't have caused you any problems. A lot of people actually end up getting gyno now a lot more popular from prolactin than estrogen, and it's way harder to reverse because from estrogen, you can just take an estrogen blocker. It's way harder to do that with prolactin. You can do things like Ghrelin, but it's way harder to work retroactively on prolactin than it is estrogen. Prolactin, just like every other hormone we've talked about here, there is an optimal range for it, and if you're not actively looking at these things, it is a huge hazard to not only your mental well-being, but also anything you're trying to do physically. So for any of you guys who are out there who want to improve your body or your mind, I would drastically recommend finding a hormone specialist, and if you have nowhere to go, because there's not that many out there, I would recommend otmens.com, the company I made honestly for myself, because I have been through the ringer with every doctor, with most of the big companies out there, and I just put everything into one platform that I would want for myself after trying all of it and ending up causing a lot of damage to myself, because most doctors, let's face it, don't have a formal education on hormones, certainly don't have an education on how to improve them or optimize them in the body. And if you do find the one guy out there that's really, really great and you like working with him, go work with that guy. I am not here to tell anybody that you shouldn't be with your guy instead of mine, but what I am saying is that I know this medicine is really difficult to access for most people, so I wanted to give people a place where they don't have to make themselves into a lab rat and they can just get it right the first time. Crazy concept, I know, but unfortunately that is our medical system. After watching this video, you should clearly understand that hormones are the single most impactful part of the human body. So if you need a place to go to make sure that yours are in check, otmens.com is the place. Guys, if you like finding ways to improve the human body, I post 2 videos like this one every single week. If you want to see more of them, go explore the channel. I have tons of them, as well as hit that subscribe button and turn on post notifications so you don't miss any more of these. And I'll see you guys in the next one.